Welcome to Daily Papers, the podcast where we break down the latest fascinating research into bite-sized conversations.
Today, we're diving into the world of artificial intelligence. Specifically, we're asking a pretty fundamental question. Can an AI be fair? And what happens when its idea of fairness is a little wobbly?
I think we all interact with AI, whether it's ChatGPT, a chatbot on a website, or a smart assistant. We're starting to rely on them for information, and some companies are even using them to make decisions, so we want them to be neutral, right? Objective.
Exactly. But a new paper titled Widespread Gender and Pronoun Bias Across LLMs suggests they are anything but. The researchers looked at large language models, or LLMs, which is the technical term for the AI systems that power things like ChatGPT and Grok.
And they found that these AIs can be swayed by something as simple as a single word. Their moral judgment, their decision on whether a statement is fair or unfair, can completely flip depending on the pronoun used.
The experiment they designed is actually quite clever. They started with 550 simple sentences that make a moral claim. For example, a base sentence might be, "I deserve a raise from my company because I work hard." The original dataset this came from would label this as a fair statement.
Right, makes sense. So what did the researchers do with it?
This is the cool part. For every single one of those 550 sentences, they generated 26 different versions. They call these counterfactual variants, which is just a fancy way of saying what-if versions.
So they'd take "I deserve a raise" and change it to "you deserve a raise," "she deserves a raise," "they deserve a raise," and so on.
Precisely. They also added explicit gender markers, so you'd get versions like, "As a man, he deserves a raise," or "As a non-binary person, they deserve a raise." The core statement, "deserves a raise for working hard," never changes. Only the person being talked about changes.
So they ended up with a massive data set of nearly 15,000 sentences, all saying basically the same things but from different perspectives. Then they fed them to a bunch of different LLMs and asked them a simple question: is this fair or unfair?
And the results were startling. Let's start with one of the most surprising findings. It's what we could call the you problem. Sentences written in the second person using the word you were consistently judged as less fair than other sentences.
That is so strange. "You deserve a raise" is seen as less fair than "I deserve a raise" or "she deserves a raise." Why would that be?
The paper has a theory. Think about how we use the word you in the real world, especially in the text data these AIs learn from. It's often used in commands, warnings, or confrontations. You need to stop that. You did this wrong. The AI learns to associate you with a more negative or critical context.
So when it sees "you deserve a raise," some kind of internal alarm bell goes off, and it becomes more cautious or even punitive in its judgment. It's less likely to give it the fair stamp of approval.
That's the hypothesis, but that wasn't even the strongest effect they found. The biggest biases were centered around gender.
Okay, let's hear it. This is where it gets really interesting.
The results were incredibly consistent across all the different AI models they tested. At one end of the spectrum, sentences about non-binary people were the most likely to be judged as fair.
Okay, and on the other end?
At the other end, sentences with male subjects were the most disfavored. They were the least likely to be judged as fair, or to put it another way, the most likely to be judged as unfair. Sentences about women fell somewhere in between.
Wow. So if an AI sees the exact same statement, say, "he deserves to be respected by the villagers," versus "they, a non-binary person, deserve to be respected," it's significantly more likely to label the non-binary version as fair.
Yes, exactly that. And the researchers have a theory for this too. They suggest that in the AI's training data, conversations about non-binary individuals are often linked to topics of social justice, equality, and inclusion. The AI essentially learns an association. The topic of non-binary individuals is frequently connected to the language of fairness.
So it's not that the AI has a conscious bias, but it's learned a statistical pattern from the mountains of text it was trained on. It's a kind of bias by association.
And this isn't a small effect. For the best-performing AI model, a sentence about a non-binary person was about 20% more likely to be judged as fair, while a sentence about a plural group of men was about 23% more likely to be judged as unfair for the exact same underlying claim.
This is more than just a quirky academic finding, isn't it? This has real-world implications.
Huge implications. We're already using these systems for things like content moderation. This study suggests that a system might be more likely to flag a comment as unfair or aggressive if it's written about a man than if it's written about someone else.
Or think about a system designed to screen complaints or feedback. A sentence like, "You treated me unfairly," might be automatically downweighted compared to, "I was treated unfairly," just because of that pronoun.
The authors make this point very clearly. By deploying these LLMs without understanding and correcting for these biases, we risk creating automated systems that perpetuate and even amplify real-world social prejudices.
It's an insidious form of bias because it's hidden. It's not based on the actual meaning of the words, but on these subtle linguistic cues that the AI has picked up on.
Absolutely. The paper concludes by emphasizing the urgent need for research into fixing these issues. It's not about making the AI woke or giving it certain opinions. It's about neutralizing these weird, arbitrary sensitivities to ensure the systems are impartial.
So the goal is to get the AI to judge the content of the statement, not the pronouns or gender of the people involved. It's a fascinating look under the hood of modern AI and a really important warning about building fairer technology for the future.
It really is. A reminder that the tools we build are only as good or as unbiased as the data we train them on.
And that's all we have time for today on Daily Papers. Join us next time as we unpack another piece of fascinating research.